and forth to the Daily Wire all week. I don't know why we can't have a debate, a discussion on the pros and cons of marriage in 2023. So Ben Shapiro tweeted, he didn't say at me. He didn't at me, guys, but Ben, just at me next time, okay? All right, so Ben says, marriage is good and you should get married. Marriage will make you a better person. You should date with an eye towards marriage, seeking commonality of values, the single most important foundation for a lasting marriage.
Absolutely. Marriage is definitely good. Marriage is what we need in order for us to create successful societies, successful nations, and so on. And what else did he say? You should date with an eye towards marriage, seeking commonality of values, which is what most people don't do. You should be equally yoked with the person that you get married to, all right? Meaning they should have the same values as you have, all right? Well, certain values are better than other values, all right? So if you're gonna marry, if you are a Christian man that believes that your woman should be a virgin, that believes that she should be submissive to you, that believes in the natural order of things that God established, which is God, men, women, and child. If you're a Christian man that believes in all of that, you need to find a Christian woman that also believes in all of that. But if you decide to ignore that and go with a woman that believes in my body, my choice, 50-50 relationships, and so on and so forth, I mean, you're not exactly equally yoked. You're gonna have a problem down the road. I mean, I think by now this should be obvious. I mean, come on. If you marry a whore and she behaves like a whore later in line, you shouldn't be surprised that she behaved like a whore, because she's a whore. She believes in those type of values. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So it's important to marry people with, and most people make this mistake, they don't even marry people that have the same values of them, because most people don't even have values. Most people live, their beliefs are based on secular values, which is materialistic, lustful, everything that's wrong in society today. Anyway, let's carry on.
Seeking commonality of values, the single most important foundation for a lasting marriage. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I disagree. Where do I disagree? I want to break down every single one of Ben's statements. So marriage is good. I do believe that the ideal marriage of two virgins getting married and staying married for a lifetime, I do believe that is good. You should get married. I do not believe it is always in men's best interest in 2023 to get married. I think that maybe...
You just contradicted yourself. So she agrees in the idea of two virgins getting married and staying together, because yes, two virgins have more of a likelihood of staying together, and so on and so forth. So she agrees with that. So she agrees with marriage. Am I correct? That would imply that she agrees with marriage. All right. But she doesn't agree with what?
Maybe wealthier men have an easier time with marriage than broke men.
Hold on. Let's run that little bit there.
Get married. I do not believe it is always in men's best interest in the ideal marriage of two virgins getting married and staying married for a lifetime. I do believe that is good. You should get married. I do not believe it is always in men's best interest in 2023 to get married. I think that maybe wealthier men have an easier time with marriage than broke men. That we have to realize that the average man in this country is about 5'9", 5'10", makes about $55,000 a year, and is about 180 pounds.
So she doesn't necessarily disagree with marriage. She just disagrees that it's in average men's best interest to be married in 2023. That's what she's basically saying. Well, and she thinks it's different for rich men, for example. So she thinks it's different for rich men, but it's rich men can get married. So it's okay because they can afford it. But for the average men, they shouldn't. Even though all throughout human history, there's always the rich has always been a minority and the poor has always been the majority, and we've always got married. We've always got married. So she's basically saying that I don't necessarily disagree with the institution of marriage. What I disagree with is not in men's best interest. And again, she's taking the values out of the equation. Of course, it's in the best interest of any man, whether you're rich, poor, doesn't matter, for you to get married. Now, should you be getting married to people that don't have your values? No, you should not. Instead of her focusing on values or moral values, she completely ignores that. That's a very big issue. That's a very big problem. Why doesn't she focus on that? And this is what makes me believe she's against marriage, because she doesn't want to focus on people holding the same values and staying married. So she's calling for the average man to abandon marriage. All right, because she thinks that the average man will pick one of these girls, and in a sense that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. So why doesn't she tell men, listen, raise your moral standards, become different men, and get married, because we need marriage? But that's not her message, is it? Her message is men don't get married. Don't get married because women are bad today. You need to protect yourself. I'm starting to wonder, does she know what the world would look like without marriage? What kind of world would we have if every man now abandoned marriage? What kind of world does she think we would have after that? Yo.
These are all give or take, depending on which website you look on. But a lot of times, their prescriptions really depend on the guy. And when we look at the average woman, who's about 170 pounds, 5'5", 1 out of 3 has had an abortion, 1 out of 4 has had an STD, and 90% have been on birth control at some point in their lives, I would argue that it is not always in men's best interest to get married.
Okay, it's not always in men's best interest, and I absolutely agree. You shouldn't be getting interested with women that hold different values from you. All right, so what's in men's best interest? What would be the men's best interest then in that case? Talk about that. Okay, what would be in men's best interest is if they got married to who? A virgin. Is if they got married to who? Someone who has the same values as they have, and so on. So talk about that. Push that. I'm okay with you pushing that. I'm okay with you promoting virginity amongst women. I'm okay with you promoting, marrying the same values. But you're not doing that. You're just telling men all across the board, don't get married, as if we all believe in the same things, as if we are all the same. It's a fact that when it comes to religious people, all right, religious sectors, the divorce rate is much more low. And I'm going to actually get into that.
Married. And telling men to get married without warning them of the risks and telling them and giving them every opportunity to protect themselves really is, I would argue, negligent. I believe it is negligent to tell men, by and large, that they should just get married. As much as I, as a Catholic, would love to see the return of families and traditionalism, I would argue you will never see that until you change the laws.
Yo, you'll never see that until you change the laws. Okay. She must not know the history of Christianity. She must not know all the countries that have opposed Christianity, all the laws that have opposed Christianity, the level of persecution that Christianity faced and still faces today, how much the world has been against Christian values and so on and so forth, and the amount of persecution that we as Christians have faced. She must not know that. This is not the first time we've faced injustice and so on and so forth. Did Christians at that time, when they were facing all this persecution, and they still are, were they calling for men not to get married? Were they calling for for them to? Were they calling for other Christians to give into guys? You know what? Listen. They're going to destroy us anyway, all right? They are after us. They hate us. They're murdering us, and so on and so forth. We might as well just give up the cause. No, that's not what you do. And And the reason why you even have the Western world, I mean, I'm not talking about currently now, the reason why the Western world has even come about before all this degeneracy is because Christians did not give up. And now she's asking for Christians to give up. This is why I call her a feminist, because you have to be a feminist to give up on values that's essential to creating successful societies and successful families. So yeah. So this is not the first time we've faced injustice, Paul. Like, seriously, and for you to tell Christians to throw the towel in because we have an unjust system and so on and so forth. Come on.
What the tradcons will often say is, well, it'll take so much time to change the laws. In the meantime, you should just get married. Well, my question is, why would the institutions change if they keep having willing customers that sign up? So Ben says marriage will make you a better person.
Hold on a second. Tradcon say what? Listen, yes, it will take a very long time for the system to change. Listen, the system was created for this purpose, guys. All right? The system isn't going to change. It's going to get worse. All right? They're not going to change marriage laws. But who would they change it for primarily? They would change it for, modern people with modern values, because their values are not conducive to a healthy relation, to a healthy marriage. They're changing it for those people, but they're not changing it for us as Christians. We agree with that. We agree with the law. We agree. Why? Because our values are different. We agree in providing and protecting for a woman. We agree with all of that. We don't get divorced. We don't believe in divorce. So if you've got two religious people that don't believe in divorce, like Catholics do, they don't believe in divorce. They believe in God and following God and so on. The likelihood of that marriage surviving is much more higher than two modern people. So I can see why modern people are calling for reform, but they have to understand that the system was created for this purpose. The system was created to destroy the family. And she knows that because she talks to enough people that expose feminism. She knows about the feminist agenda. So she should know that the system was created for that purpose. She seems to think that the system is somehow good, and all we have to do is convince the system, and then the system will change the laws and so on and so forth, because the system has our best interests at heart. Stop being naive. The system was created for a purpose.
I would argue that is very dependent on the man and the wife. There are absolutely nagging, belittling wives that make marriage a living hellhole for men. And no, it does not make them a happy, healthier person. Ben says you should date with an eye towards marriage, seeking a commonality of values, the single most important foundation for a lasting marriage. Ben is really selling here that if you just find a woman with a commonality of values, that it is not the risks, that it is not as risky as the Pearl doom and gloomer will say.
Yeah. The likelihood of you having a successful relationship if you marry someone that has your values increases significantly. He's not selling anything. He's just telling you what a fact is. If I'm a virgin Christian man and I marry a whore that doesn't have my values, stop using the word whore. I marry a feminist, all right? Then yeah, my chances of having a successful marriage increases. The fact that she's trying to downplay the importance of moral values really worries me about what she's trying to imply here, about her message as a whole. So, because the most important factor is what she's basically trying to shame and denigrate. That's what she's trying to do. That's what literally she's trying to do.
Now, some of this is an inference, so, take it with a grain of salt. But I would argue that even a 10% chance of getting your life absolutely destroyed in divorce is still pretty risky. We all know that even amongst religious couples, the divorce rate is still 25, 35, 45%. And what happens is we go back and forth with the tradcons and they'll say, oh, well, it's lower than you guys are saying. You're doom and gloomers. And what I typically see them do is manipulate the stats. Now, how do they do that? If the average age of divorce is 46, I would argue you're not painting a full picture by using the stats of men in their 20s and 30s. I know many men that were very happily married in their 20s and 30s before getting their lives absolutely destroyed.
She tries to appeal to men, acting as if she is pro men when she's really not. She's a feminist. All right, okay, cool. I mean, come on, you heard it all. She said it. If there's a 10% chance, meaning if there's a 90% chance of you having a successful marriage, that's not good enough for her. A 90% chance is not good enough for the survival of the world. A 90% chance, okay? Because you need marriage in order to survive. In order for civilizations to continue in a successful manner, you need marriage. Look at what's happened ever since marriages has declined. Look how degenerate the world is becoming. So you need marriage in order for society to continue in a successful manner. She's saying that if there's a 10% chance, forget it. So her argument is literally done out here. So if every single thing has to be absolutely perfect, as if human beings are perfect. Human beings are not perfect and they will never be. But for you to say abandon an institution that literally society needs in order for its survival, to abandon that because there's a 10% chance of divorce, and that's a good enough, sufficient reason to abandon it, I think that's, I mean, that should show you where she really stands. Okay, what else did she say? Because I'm actually forgetting right now. What else did she say after that? Hold on a second, just get my thoughts.
Now, how do they do that? If the average age of divorce is 46, I would argue you're not painting a than you guys are saying. You're doom and gloomers. And what I typically see them do is manipulate the stats.
Okay, she starts talking about the stats. All right, guys, let's get into the stats. All right, here's the stats. We're manipulating the stats. Right, we're not manipulating no stats. It's a fact that when it comes to religious sectors, yeah, people who hold different values from modern values, from people that believe in secularism and liberalism and so on and so forth, which is what the West promotes, okay? The divorce rate is way much lower in religious sectors. Now, as you can see, marital status by religious group. And according to this, okay, you can see here, Buddhist, when it comes to the divorce rate, is 10%. Catholics, 12%. Evangelical Protestants, it says here when it comes to divorce rate is what? Hold on a second. Divorced and separated is 14%. All right. Even with Hindu and so on, you can see that it's extremely low when it comes to people who have an objective reality in which they bow down to, in which they believe in which they follow. When it comes to those people that have an objective reality, which they are submissive to, you can see, which is religious people, you can see that the divorce rate is extremely low. Now, here, this stats just says whether you're married or you're divorced. That's it. All right. Now, let's look at, this is one of the things that they brought it up. And actually, she mentioned me on a roundabout way because one of the guys that she cited on one of her shows that she did recently, forgot his name, Benjamin something anyway. And he responded to my tweet. He basically she basically cited his response to me. And he basically cited this, this stats from the same website. Belief in God by marital status. And when we look at, look at this. When we look at belief in God by marital status, the divorce rate should be 69% when it comes to religious groups. Belief in God by marital status. So if you're married, 67%. If you're divorced, 69%. But this is to do with belief in God. Not whether you're married or divorced. Belief in God. Who cares what your beliefs are? Who cares if you claim to believe in it or don't believe in it? That's subjective. Anyone can say anything when it comes to belief. Are you actually following it? Are you following the religion? Are you abiding by those religious by the religious beliefs? Are you abiding by those? Belief in God by marital status doesn't make sense because it's to do with people's opinion. That's the problem with these stats. So anyone can say anything. It's completely subjective. So yeah. So she's completely wrong on that, because when we look at whether you're divorced or married, we can see that the divorce rate when it comes to religious group is extremely low. But anyways, I think...
Now, how do they do that? If the average age of divorce is 46, I would argue you're not painting a full picture by using the stats of men in their 20s and 30s. I know many men that were very happily married in their 20s and 30s before getting their lives absolutely destroyed in their 40s and 50s. A more honest answer would be surveying the men in their 60s and 70s, what their opinion is on marriage. If I had to guess, it would be very different than the men married today. The other issue is they downplay the difference in the time period that we are in. Most women have been addicted to attention from the time they were very, very young. This creates a completely different pool of women that men have to choose from. The women are more slutty and overweight than ever. And really, when we don't acknowledge these things and tell men to just get married with a system that profits off of them having their lives ruined, there's no real solution, because you're not...
There's no real solution. Change your values. Why would you raise young women that's attention to social media? That's a parent problem. And the reason why that's a parent problem is because these parents obviously don't have the right moral values in order to raise their children correctly. So that's a parent problem. So she's not really saying anything. Go back to values, people. Go back to beliefs in religion, religious beliefs, because that usually tend to tell people to do the right thing. So yeah, I would say go back to Christian beliefs, and you will raise good families. But it all depends on how faithful you are to those beliefs as well. That will play a part on the outcome of your children. But anyway, guys, hope you enjoy this reaction. I'll leave you with it. That's just Pearl's debunked